Tonight on 2020, we investigate race, gender, clan, and class in past and present art.
A clan is a group of people joined together by blood or marriage ties. Sizes of clans vary. Clan history is very valued and respected within clans, and they use art to honor their ancestors. An example of this is the ancient Roman statue of Togato Barberini. The statue was made for worship and to glorify the ancestry of that clan. All three faces are death masks made by pressing soft wax on the faces of the deceased shortly after death. They were replicated and given to various clan members so all could honor the ancestors. Clan history is preserved to help ensure clan cohesion, which increases power. A great example of this is the interior house post by Arthur Shaughnessy. Here's never before seen footage of Arthur talking about his work when he completed it in 1907.
The interior house post is a mythical thunderbird. It has wings that are spread, representing a chief. The powerful curved beak and curved ears represent supernatural powers. The extra eyes on the wings and torso imply power. Below the thunderbird is a bear, a common figure on family crests, associated with an elder or a high-ranking person. The bear has bared teeth, upturned nose with circular nostrils, compact arms and legs. The body was also compressed. The head is 1/3 the size of the figure. The bear's claws have extra faces painted on them as well. The torso shows no muscular strength or surface details.
Clan ties are strengthened through rituals, and art is often essential in those rituals. Today, we have nuclear families. In highly industrialized societies, the extended family has lost strength, and the clan has turned into a nuclear family. Nuclear families have also changed over time, too. Clans were huge, with many, many people in them, and now we're down to the nuclear families, which are more the immediate family.
Throughout history, gender roles have been portrayed in art in accordance to time period and culture. Sitting here today with me is Morgan Weigel, an expert in gender roles in art. So Morgan, how has gender influenced art in primitive societies?
Every culture has standards that show acceptable behavior for both men and women, and an example of this in a primitive society would be that of the Sepik people of New Guinea in the South Pacific in the early 20th century. This was before any foreign influences had disrupted the Sepik lifestyle. In their culture, the men dominated the women in much of life, and their rituals and artwork made this relationship even more clear. The Sepik rituals were called tamboran, and they took place in A-shaped cult houses that were large and dangerous to build, so it affirmed the men's strength and domination over the women. Even the cult houses themselves were considered to be gendered. The men saw the ridgepole as phallic, and the inside of the house as a woman's belly. This reenacted sex and birth. The men saw their rituals as creating men from infants, so therefore they took the women's procreative power into their own hands. The men also worked hard in their paintings and carvings that were hung up in the cult houses. The men gave their art away to pass their spirits on to those at lower initiation stages, and the paintings became effective and invigorated in the cult rituals. Gender has had a great influence on art in primitive societies, and the Sepik people are a great example of that.
I see. Then how has art emulated gender roles in different time periods?
Artwork has matched gender roles all throughout history in every different time period. For instance, in the early 1600s, Peter Paul Rubens painted Abduction of the Daughters of Leucippus, which is a scene from Greek mythology that shows the two sons of Zeus capturing a philosopher's two daughters as they were horseback riding. The women resist, but their gestures are seen as dramatic and ineffective. The painting indicates what is considered masculine or feminine through the characters' poses, behavior, and clothing. All of the figures represent ideal body types for that period of time. The women were meant to look soft, pale, and fleshy, whereas outdoor activity and strength and dark skin of the men show masculine characteristics. During this time, men had privilege over women's bodies, so women learned to be helpless. This is all portrayed in the painting. Moving on to the late 1700s, art still had ways of indicating masculinity and femininity. In Jacques-Louis David's Oath of the Herati, a scene from the early history of ancient Rome is depicted. In it, 3 brothers are vowing to represent the Roman army in a fight to the death, and it shows the father handing them their swords. The men seem to be very courageous, patriotic, and manly, while their sisters are in the background with dread and sorrow on their faces. Heroic actions are a mark of masculinity, which is reinforced in this painting by the women's passivity. Another gender indicator in this painting is the clothing. The men's clothes are sharp and angular, whereas the women's clothing is soft and curvy. Also, the classical architecture used in the back of the painting is considered to be masculine. Later on, during the 20th century, art still took on gender roles. The Sepik people of New Guinea had a very gender-based art and rituals, as I said earlier. In many cultures, people change their bodies to enhance their masculinity or their femininity. For example, in Hung Liu's trauma painting, it shows a Chinese woman in the center publicly showing her bound feet, which was a regular practice in the Song dynasty because it was considered to be attractive to men. Publicly exposing your bound feet was thought to be a shameful act. Some more recent artwork done by the Guerrilla Girls seeks to correct a specific kind of discrimination. In there, Do Women Have to Be Naked to Get into the Met Museum? They were asking why prestigious museums often include very few women artists, yet they had many pictures of naked women that were painted by men. The Guerrilla Girls protest gender discrimination in the art field, and the purpose of their work is to cause exposure, embarrassment, and change so that the imbalances in art will be eventually evened out.
I see. And in what way has art reflected sexual discrimination in society?
Generally, art has reflected sexual discrimination in society by having men always be dominant over women. In paintings and other works of art all throughout history, men were portrayed as strong, tough, courageous, and bold figures. They carried themselves in a manner that made them appear to be in command of the situation at hand, and they were always in charge and leading the image. The women, on the other hand, seem to always be either in the background of the art, looking passive and helpless, or they are nude. Women are always portrayed as soft and domesticated, and they are supposed to look helpless amongst the big, strong men. Men are usually always the ones that have been made to look important, and women have always been figures to the side that aren't really as necessary. This is all sexual discrimination because men and women are supposed to be equals. Many people and groups, such as the Guerrilla Girls that I spoke of earlier, are doing all they can to level the playing field so that sexual discrimination is not reflected in art anymore.